to give a special shout out to Laura Pahutsky, Michigan Democrat state legislator, has sterilized herself. Thank you. We appreciate your anti-contribution to the world because we do not need any more of those running around. Of course, she goes, I'm going to avoid giving birth into Donald Trump's America. I don't know if you realize this, lady, but when you sterilize, it's kind of permanent. I mean, I guess maybe you can undo it, but anyhow, my gosh, that just turns her into a certain kind of dumpster for the Antifa to dump their dirty loads into. All right, let's get into this thing with Alex Jones. As you may probably know, or maybe not, I'm an InfoWars fan. And I'm not a fan of corrupt government. So that kind of, that goes hand in hand, especially considering the fact that I've actually listened to both sides of the whole thing with what they're talking about here. I'm not going to say the name of the place because it's just a really touchy subject, especially when it comes to videos and everything. So we're going to do our best to walk around this as much as possible. But all I can say is that whenever Alex Jones went to court, it was a show trial. It was a predetermined. They already had a fixed. You're guilty. Now we're just going to find out how guilty you are. It was a show trial. It was scripted. There were HBO cameras in there. Alex even said that there were times when he was kind of moving around in the courtroom and he actually seen what looked like a written out script of certain things. And they had camera crews in there from like all over the place, and then makeup crews to make sure everybody looked good. And there were, it was never intended to be a real, actual civil trial. He was already found. As soon as he walked in the court, you're guilty. The judge already determined that. And so just to give you a little bit of background on some of the other stuff too, what they do in some civil trials is they will actually go in there and ask for information that you just can't bring because you don't have it. And if you say, well, I can't, you're asking for stuff that I just don't have. Well, then you're guilty by default because you're not actually going in there and doing what we ask you to do. So that means that you're trying to skew the case. So we're just going to go ahead and find you guilty by default. That's what they do. And they, I think that was similar to what happened to Trump in the E. Jean Carroll case when it came down to an actual civil trial that made sense, even though he had great defense, witnesses, all the people, everything, the actual timelines of what didn't make sense, how proving the fact that her as a known liar. And so same thing. But by the way, just to give you a little insight too on that, Alex Jones was a trial for or a beta run for what they wanted to do to Trump. But it looks like somehow or another justice has prevailed. I don't know how exactly, but we're going to read the article a little bit. A bankruptcy judge blocked the families of this thing that happened at that certain school. That was the circumstances questionable. And the U.S. bankruptcy judge on Wednesday blocked a settlement between the families who had sued Alex Jones over his false claims about the 2020 thing that happened at that school, or 2012 thing that happened at that school. It was an event of mass deletions. Saying that their attempt to divide the bankruptcy conspiracy theorists' assets exceeded the court's authority. He was asked about other things. The judge said, he says, two groups of families proposed a settlement that would guarantee the Texas family a 25% share of Jones's future payments made by the families that were involved in that event that took place at that school. And so the U.S. bankruptcy judge, Christopher Lopez, rejected the settlement at a hearing in the Houston, saying the families were asking him to also divide up the assets of the InfoWars parent company, Free Speech Systems, despite the fact that the company had been dismissed from bankruptcy last year. And the judge says, I just can't do that. Lopez said that case is closed. And the federal judge previously ordered a liquidation of Alex Jones's personal assets in December 2022. And Alex Jones filed for a personal bankruptcy protection in the Texas court after the verdict of this thing that happened. And the Connecticut judge previously ordered Alex Jones to pay the additional $473 million to the families. And then this is all, by the way they were trying to do this, they were trying to indentured servitude Alex by. So a little history. This guy named Prince, artist formerly known as Prince, got his his complete and total likeness owned by Sony Corporation because he signed contracts that he didn't read very well and didn't have very good legal representation, and he lost the rights to all of his music and his likeness, so he couldn't even use his name anymore. Now, Alex Jones never did that. He said that anything that he's ever done was always public asset. It was never private owned. And he never signed any contracts with anybody that said that. So that means that there's nobody can claim Alex Jones's name. So they were trying to say that they wanted to own his name where he couldn't do any kind. It would make it very hard for him to rebuild as a content creator on any kind of other platform if he couldn't use his name. They tried to shut this guy down. They even openly said, "Hey, we don't want money. We want this guy to be silenced." And it had nothing to do with the families and that thing that happened with that school. It was because that happened 8, 9, 10 years ago. And if you look into the details behind that, it's epically making you ask questions. I'll leave the details out, but all I can say is questions would be asked by anybody that had any inquisitivity. Anyways, more from Charles Barkley. Let's see what he's got to say. This is crazy.
Like Iowa. Governor Reynolds, let's learn more about the state. Do you know what percentage of Iowans are white and what percentage are black?
I don't know the exact percentages, no.
She should say, how many of them do you think are bald? How many bald chicks we got in Iowa? That's a good question.
We're by far a larger percentage of white population.
That's correct. Iowa is 90% white and only 4.5% black. So that is drastically different from the national population. So when
that pisses her off. She's berating this governor because of there's a lot of white people that live there. And basically what she's going to do right there is she's going to try to make this woman virtue signal, make this woman right here, wherever she's at. That lady, she's going to have to virtue signal. She realized she's in a tough place when she answers the question. The way she sits down, she looks really uncomfortable. She realized that she's being got by an angry leftist who is going to play identity politics and then throw the race card around at any given moment. And, you're not supposed to say anything to this lady, because of the fact that Miss Presley, Miss Aliana Presley, or whatever you want to call her, she gets a free pass because obviously repressed in many ways. She suffers from the Jada alopecia syndrome, and she's got brown skin, and I've got a position where I can throw my weight around, and she's going to do that. And this is. You'd be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be surprised. But America's tired of this. The only people that don't know that are people like her right there. They don't understand this. And so more of that's going to be a thing, that they're screaming and hollering because what's going on is they're really upset that Department of Government Efficiency has went in there and just pulled all their funding for doing crazy crap that they like to do, which is tearing down America. We're funding that, by the way. And so everything that is going to be geared towards that, their anger, their spite, and you're going to see this. And all it does is just make our side stronger because we're able to point out what is wrong with their side, what makes them lose elections. So anyways, thank you for checking out this video. Please hit the like, subscribe, and share, and you'll have a wonderful rest of the day. And I'm going to take us out on the former CEO, or she used to run Wikipedia, but now she's the CEO of NPR, and she's going to explain to you that we lie to you for your own good. See you later, guys.
I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.